Welcome to this episode of the Athlete's Porch. Today I'm pulling a conversation out of the archives with Tucker Frawley. At the time, this was about 20 months ago, Tucker was in pro ball with the Minnesota Twins. And over the last couple of years, he transitioned to the New York Mets organization and player development. Just to give you some background on Tucker, he spent over a decade coaching at Yale, where he helped really build one of the best defensive programs in college baseball. And he's really a brilliant baseball mind, but what really stands out to me is how inquisitive he is. He's always searching, asking better questions, always trying to connect the dots between development, data, and really just like how players actually learn, right? Keeping it human. And before we hit record, on this, Tucker and I were catching up for a few minutes about our kids, youth sports, ages, where that conversation led us to was about time commitment coaches make to their teams or players, and that's exactly where this episode picks up. And so I'll let you enjoy this. I particularly go back to this podcast every few months because it sparks new ideas for me as a parent. So save this one, enjoy it. I think if you're a coach, player, and even a parent, you're going to take a lot of quality angles or points from Tucker's angle on development. And so after some friendly catch-up off the air, here's my conversation with Tucker Frawley. You can find Tucker on X. One thing that I always believe is just like time, you can't get it back. And
100%, man. Like,
yeah,
man, when I was at Yale, and I don't know if people outside the Ivy League ever appreciated this, but like the recruiting was so much more like condensed. It was so much more like focused because you felt that at Stanford, like the pool of kids is so much smaller. But the time that like we were able to recruit kids, like, in their high school careers, like we couldn't touch kids when they were freshmen or sophomores. Like we had to wait. And I always compared it to like other leagues and other levels, and I saw guys grinding their gears in the recruiting trail so much like more and worrying about so many more classes. And you know, again, like I always looked at what you did at Stanford and those other big time conferences, and it was sexy as hell. But from like a family standpoint, I was saying to myself, man, this Ivy League dynamic, it's you still get your taste of Division I baseball. We can still taste that stuff like over the course of the year, but it definitely maximized my time at home as much as one could while coaching
mhm,
Division I sports. So
yeah,
it
no
strikes a
doubt.
chord with me.
No doubt. Well, I could take this many different ways with you, as I feel like you could wear a lot of different hats and perspectives. Kind of my overall focus as we pre-communicated was just baseball, right? And like the end goal here is if you can get a better player in the Mets organization now or previously in the Twins, just in an MLB organization or somebody gets drafted and they're more prepared for baseball, right? And that whole list will go down. But like, I want to be able to help the kids that are on their track to get there because the game, in my opinion, the IQ is going down a little bit as a whole. The IQ is going down a little bit. The athleticism is can be there, cannot be there, right? Just overall, like continuing to grow the game and more so here, Tuck is just make them aware of like what it actually takes and maybe some intrinsic thoughts of just like some strategies that could help within that, right?
Yeah.
And for you, I think that do you have anything to comment on that? Just that, would you agree or disagree, or you see both sides?
So my mind goes to two different perspectives. I'm curious which one you want to lean into more. Like it's the between the ear stuff, and there's obviously like the physical tools that you see come out like performance wise. So where did your mind go with that?
Yeah,
Both or one or the other?
yeah, of course. Obviously, it probably starts up top, but specifically more so the development of the athleticism and the
Okay.
feels
Yeah.
out on there for both perspectives here is like what lacks because that's more obvious, of course. We're more aware of that, especially as coaches. That's just a natural byproduct, but also just like the reflecting, but also what's the separator? What are the best guys doing? And not necessarily speaking bat speed and maybe the fastest run time. Yeah.
Yeah. So college has been a lot different than pro ball. I mean, I think the biggest thing that jumped out to me on the pro ball side is like how difficult, how awesome the pitching is. I mean, they're doing such a great job optimizing stuff, and and giving our hitters challenges every single time they walk up to the dish that are just getting tougher and tougher. Knowing that like I'm a defensive guy and I'd love to say that like the conversation starts with like your glove, but the fact of the matter is like because hitting so hard, those who can do it are going to be given a much longer look. They're going to be given a lot longer runway when they show some ability to put the bat on the ball, to control the strike zone, and then, yes, do some damage. But what I did learn in my 5 years with Minnesota is that some of those things as a coach are a lot easier to improve than others. We like to think as coaches as being able to improve all three of those attributes, bat to ball, swing decisions, and damage. But the fact of the matter is, like, it's really hard to take an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid, or obviously someone older than that, and improve their hand-eye and their ability to just consistently find the sweet spot of their bat. Swing decisions, a lot easier to like put them in a daily environment with an unpredictable one at that, and hone that lens. Damage, like 100%. Like, is it easy? Certainly not, but it's much easier than I'd say those other two areas. So knowing that, like, I got an 11-year-old son, I'm doing everything I can to instill in him and hone that part, that tougher part of the game right now, even if the swing decisions aren't perfect, even if like the damage isn't like nth degree, because I know like this is the time, this is the pocket of his life where like if I can breed athleticism and just a consistent knack of finding that barrel, even if he's out on his front side, even if he's not on time, even if he's expanding the zone, it's going to be so much easier for him to take that attribute and refine it than it is to like work right now on what his A plus swing looks like, what his best output looks like, and then all of a sudden breed some athleticism in there to like, get versatile with the barrel. So again, and I didn't realize that it was that difficult to improve until I saw like a lot of these guys who are like much older in their careers try to work on it, and it's certainly not like a foregone conclusion that if you like you have poor bat to ball when you're on the older side that you can't improve it. It's just a lot tougher,
Hmm.
and the gains are a lot smaller than what you typically see with guys who, maybe have a damage component or just a bat speed component that they want to make some gains in. So
Right. Yeah,
that's hitting side.
for
I'm not a
sure.
hitting guy, but that's what I noticed from afar.
Yeah, but you're an observer, right? And you see it, and you'll love this because you've been around Stanford and Mark Marquis. He would say, my time there, he would say, you can't change the spots on a cheetah. Meaning, and specifically, he would always refer to it as the recruiting side of things. Like, don't go get the player who strikes out 25% in high school because he's going to come here and he's going to strike out 35%. Don't get the
Hmm.
guy that throws really hard in high school that throws a lot of balls, a walk per inning. Because you, as great of a coach as you think you are, you're not going to change it. It's just it's too late, and that's the
100%.
point you're making there. And I had a kid, my nephew, in fact, he's 9, and I'll occasionally have him and his buddy work out, just do like a fun workout, right? And the buddy is super fundamental and runs rings around him and is much funner to coach right now because he's fundamentally listens. My nephew, and I tell him this, by the way, he is squirrely. He doesn't always make eye contact. He's not always listening, but he's way more athletic. And I was talking to my brother. I'm like, what would you rather have right now? Well, give me the athlete now that we can fine tune development or fundamentals down the road. Whereas if you get in your box, then it's going to be harder to pull that out. And I think that's a line exactly what
100%.
you're saying. Yeah.
If I had to draw some analogies to like the defensive side, it's like, and I'm sure this is a phrase you use, like some hitters just have a knack of finding the barrel in a way that like aesthetically it does not look great, but like
Hmm.
they're hitting the ball hard because they just have a knack of finding it there.
Hitters hit. That's what you hear. Hitters hit.
Hitters hit, yes. Whether you're thinking like Evan Gattis or Hunter Pence, like these guys that are like, ooh, that doesn't look,
Hmm.
what I'm used to seeing, but man, he's smashing it every time. Like that's the quality that with these younger kids, like I think the more that you entice them that that's what you're looking for, again, like you'll be pleasantly surprised by like the things that they have to do to get the barrel to the ball. And defensively, I always say like, I mean, I tell kids at every level that the tip of their index finger when they're catching is like their barrel. The more often that they can find that, they're going to notice the ball sticks when
Hmm.
it hits that part of your glove,
Hmm.
and it kicks out usually when, it hits a different part of your glove. Is there a time to talk about glove action and glove presentation? Absolutely, right? But like if at the end of the day we can just keep the focus like external and let these kids like figure it out, not completely on their own, but a certain extent, yes, on their own, just to see what they do. Again, like, it's a really nice attribute to hone when they're young, and to your point, like refine as they get older.
Hmm.
Because it's so hard to instill that in them at an older age. So
Yeah.
that's
And
the best
it
analogy I could give defensively.
for sure. No, and it's feel, right? And it's external too, no different. Defensively it'd be like, or offensively it'd say, hey, just hit a line drive up the middle. And as a byproduct, your swing path is probably in a good place.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and it's
100%.
like, hey, take this ball and get rid of it as quick as you can and throw it to first base. Okay,
Yes.
it's not a long arm action, right? And I think as coaches, the younger coaches, and even high school is like if you could just create that environment of maybe learning, having fun, but learning, and then saying, okay, you're doing that. So here's some video of it. That's the feels that you have. And I know I think you're a big feel guy,
Yes.
and just like from that side of it. So it's the external and then reversing backwards, which is what we're talking about. It's like, what is it in the big leagues right now? And what are the components? And then how do maybe we fix it for the high school kid and then, maybe even the youth kid of just athleticism.
So like a good example of that, like I go hitting with my son 2 times a week in the middle of like all the hockey stuff. We do some top hand work, some bottom hand work, and some like I put a 33-30 in his hand, something big and heavy. But we work on different zones, like up in the zone, bottom of the zone. And the only thing I tell him when I'm like flipping to his letters is like, keep it off the roof. And that is the only thing I ask him to think about, because if I can keep him just a little bit shorter up there, and even if he takes it to the extreme where like he's like maybe chopping down a little bit, but my external cue is just like keep it off the roof. And then I'll like flip it to him at his kneecaps, maybe even a little bit lower. And my only goal is like, hey, keep it off the ground.
Hmm.
And when you take that environment approach, like, is it perfect? Certainly not. I guarantee any like of the hitting coaches out there would watch my son, hit and like be able to pick out a number of things that he's not doing perfectly.
Hmm.
But he's at an age right now where the more I can set him up with just like a game, for lack of a better term, and I literally like play like up, all right, first to three. Like every time you hit the roof on a ball that's up at your letters, like I get a point. Every time
Hmm.
you keep it off the roof, even if it's a
Yeah.
five hopper to the back of the net, like you get a point. First to three
Hmm.
wins. And
Yeah.
the more I gamify things and I have like an approach to just the environment, the better the swings become, the more fun he has.
Hmm.
And I don't know if my son's unique in this way, but like the more I tell him about like, where his hands need to be or where he wants to be, put his weight,
Yeah.
the less fun it gets for him and the less
Unless
of
he
an
wants to
athlete
come
he
back.
becomes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For
So
sure. For sure. No, I love that. And you're naturally in 3 years, 4 years from now, you'll be able to coach him because he has those feels of like, hey, you can keep it simple, right? Keep it simple, but yeah, just building feel. And now you have the long bat, right? So it's like, hey, how do we're creating barrel awareness without explaining to him that he's creating barrel awareness. Like, dude, just get the barrel to the ball. You're
mhm.
doing great. It doesn't matter. You're doing great, right? And the one thing about the top hand, and this could be related to any position offensively different. Top hand, right? You're breaking down just a single movement with your body and feel. This is where feel comes in, right? And that's why you're talking about the high pitch, but like you're breaking it down. And as for hitters, it's be able to just, hey, just get your bat to the ball with that hand. Same thing on the bottom. Just get the bat to the ball with that hand. Um, you could say one hand fielding. You can go bare hand fielding. You can go different weighted balls coming into your glove as a catcher, as an infielder. You could be throwing different balls to just
Mhm.
create feel, right? And how we kind of reconnected was I saw your tweet about feels And then it was about like, hey, how do we still gauge ourselves on getting better, I guess, without just looking at the obvious exit velocity. Not maybe you didn't say that specifically, but like the obvious stats, right? And then how do you add value to your game within that? And so like for me, that comes up with like awareness and IQ. And so, which a lot of it is base running, in my opinion, is like you could change the game by having awareness and IQ. I think more on the bases than on defense and on offense because of more opportunities, more variables with the batted ball and positioning.
Mhm.
What's your take on just how maybe do you feel like you evaluate base running and IQ and game changing to take 90s and just teach that better?
Yeah, I mean it's one of the few things that I've been tasked with this year with the Mets, and I think like any good teacher, you're gonna sit down and you're gonna try to like show your players like a Venn diagram of sorts, where like, hey, here's why the team wants this and needs this. Here's the value you're gonna be providing your teammates in ways that like may or may not always end up on your report card, and what you may be commended for. And at the same time, like we want to like acknowledge that like this is the best thing for you as a player. Like whether it's at the pro level where like you're going to get paid, whether it's at the amateur level where you're like coaches look at this and it's going to help you, with your prospect status or break the lineup or be at the top of the order versus the bottom of the order. Like you kind of have to speak both languages, like, and again, show them like where that Venn diagram kind of like crosses over and you're like, this is why we want you to do that. I think base running is one of those parts that like it could very easily, if you have the wrong teacher, come across like conditioning, where it's just
Mhm.
like a necessary evil, like we're just running for the sake of running. And I think like because it's definitely not as sexy and we don't see it as much on highlights as the hitting or the pitching or even the fielding, like it could totally like escape a player or even a coach just how important it is. So I think sitting them down and acknowledging that like, hey, listen, like the ways that you can impact your game with a bat, are probably more consistent, and that's why those guys are valued at a certain level. But like this is something that can help you close the gap with the guys that hit a little bit better than you. And ultimately, like it's something that's going to be the tiebreaker with everybody else that hits the same way as you. Like
Mhm.
if you can show that you can separate yourself from the pack in this regard, there's value there, and that's what will open up a door for you, whether it's again, like making a lineup, hitting at the top of a lineup, making a team after high school. Like the list can go on and on.
Mhm.
But again, I do think as coaches, we need to sit guys down and really show them the value in it. The absence of that can totally make it come across like, oh, I'm just going to check this box. It's a part of the game, but like it's not ultimately what I'm going to be graded on. And I think that is the narrative we're trying to change and tangibly change at that.
Yeah, measure it so you can manage it. So maybe a guy can get paid because he's a great base runner, a great you see base stealer, right? You see a guy that could steal, um, adds value, right? And that's what we're talking about here is value add. And we don't need, I shouldn't say this, but you don't need, looking back on some players that people might, Miguel Cabrera, he doesn't need to go first to third. You're not asking him to do that. I don't want to say his speed doesn't allow him to, but that's just the last thing. You probably don't want him pulling his hamstring so he could stay in the lineup, right? But like
100%.
everybody else can be a run scorer, and how Miguel Cabrera is going to get more RBIs is because you go first to third and you're on third, and now he gets a sac fly versus having to get a hit.
The
And
thing that we did at Yale, which I loved, I'm doing my best to find a way to maybe do this with the Mets, is we want to have everybody just understand the value of a 90, no matter how you produce it. And one of the best things we did at Yale is we had a wide variety of players. Like we had some really like fast, top of the order type guys. We had some donkeys in the middle of the order that left the yard. And it was really cool to like, revisit things after every week on a Tuesday. They would have Monday off and show them how many bases like each guy produced, and we would take like the top three or four. And
Mhm.
what you notice over the course of the season is like two guys would produce like 30 bases over the course of the week, and they did it in two completely different ways. But
Mhm.
we were valuing it as the exact same, like how you got there, how you got to second base, whether it was a walk in a bag or a double, like
Mhm.
it was seen as the same in our eyes.
Mhm.
And I think the more you can like speak that language and just know that the common denominator is how many 90s can you produce in any way, shape, or form,
Mhm.
the better. And getting back to your point though about like Cabrera, like I'll say this, like yes, you don't want your guys to, push the envelope to a point where like they're risking injury. But there's also ways to still say to a Miguel Cabrera, we want you to like get a healthy lead here. Maybe not such an egregiously long lead that you're diving back to first every time. That's not everybody's game, although as much as we'd like it to be. But there is a difference between being like 2 feet off the bag and 10 feet off the bag so that when you do get that ball in the gap, you don't have to sprint to third base. You can get there jogging and
Mhm.
standing up, and there's your 90, there's your extra one at that, and you're staying healthy. So, I
Mhm.
mean, there's a lot of different
Yeah.
ways and to talk through it with guys, and I think any of us like need to like understand it. It could get pulled back, and you could be super passive in a way that you know, you're clearly leaving some untapped potential for your team and each player on the table.
Mhm.
And you could take it to the extreme and push these guys to a point where like now you're pulling from other parts of your game. Like that's
Right.
the simple
Yeah.
truth. So finding that sweet spot for each individual player is imperative.
Yeah, a law of attraction, right? You bring it up and you make it point, like you're saying at Yale, and you start to highlight, this is a way coaches can do it. It's like you show up to practice and you start to highlight Mikey going first to third and changing the game, and you make it, Mikey feels good, and his teammates recognize that Mikey feels good. They want to be like Mikey, like next day, hey, Timmy, great job first to third, man. You were out, but that's the process. Oh, okay. Right. And then as you get your more opportunity, it's like that's a little incentive based. It's like I like being called up in practice, like by a coach. And
100%.
then you show them the video and they're able to just be like, that's what it looks like. We need more of that. And then you can reference it. Hey, remember when Tucker went first to third and then he spun because the guy balled the ball? That's why. And the whole thing, when I take so much pride in base running, right? And it's like, because it can change a game. It can. On those, when you got two Cy Youngs lining up or Friday night dudes, and you get one runner in scoring position and you get one opportunity to steal or ball in dirt, and that blooper two strike contact can win you 1-0, that's important, right? And so I would always say every inch counts. And it started with your lead, knowing who you are, like you're saying, who you are to maximize that lead, whether you're a stealer or not. And then the secondary for me is a ginormous take
Huge.
because the big leagues, it's atrocious as a whole. They don't know, gotta be careful with my words, but like they don't take a secondary to gain every inch. And their
Correct.
momentum, specifically, as we know, infielders prep, right? Be good timing, for me, we want to be in the air as the ball's making contact with the bat or the catcher's glove, so we can hit the ground and go. Stay in
There's a
motion. Law
we
in
see
motion
so
stays in motion,
many
right?
we see so many things on Twitter like showing like infielders in sync with one another. Some of the best visuals that I've like seen, depending on like the camera angles, like is a runner at second base that's actually like getting his secondary and in the air the exact same time as those infielders behind them. Like,
Hmm.
yes, you're seeing great technique and timing from the infield front, but you're
Hmm.
also seeing the value in having the exact same
Yeah,
technique and timing on the base running front.
yeah,
Those are some of the best videos I've found.
1,000%. It's so nice, and I remember watching a Dodgers playoff game way back. Adrian Gonzalez was on second base, not below average runner, right? Phenomenal hitter, below average runner, and there's two outs, and it's a tie game late in the game, and he's on second, and they go, he's out, he gets thrown out on a ball to left field by 1 step, catch and tag, 1 step out. And for as an observer, you have to understand as a coach, right? Is like, why was he out? Okay, was his angle coming around, reverse back, angle coming around too much? Did he hesitate? Did he stutter touching the base? And then was his turn too wide? Or what was his secondary? What was his lead side? And they showed the replay from the pitcher stand right behind home plate, so you could see the pitcher, the hitter, and the base runner, just like you're saying. And he actually he landed too early, and then
Hmm.
he did a negative like 6 inch half step, and then he was flat-footed and he took off. That's why he was out. Not because
100%.
he's slow, because everything else was off.
It's like when they say that when the best color commentators in football like that they don't watch the ball, they watch the line because everything that happens at the line is basically going to create every all the cool stuff that the layman watches when he's watching the game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a baseball version of that. Like everyone will pay attention to the throw at the plate and go to the left fielder or whatever the ball was hit and say, "Wow, what a great defensive play." But the best like coaches, their eyes will go to like the offensive or defensive line of baseball where it's like,
Yep.
okay, let's go back to the lead. Let's go back to the secondary. Was
Mm-hmm.
the timing right? Was the primary at a distance
Yep.
that like made the secondary actually like worth its salt? So
Mm-hmm.
you're
Yeah.
speaking my language and you're a
For
thousand
sure.
percent
The
right.
timing thing is, and we took in Rusty at Santa Clara, for the first couple of years was like, you're doing base running again, you're doing base running again, and he ended up seeing the benefit of it, and we were first to third, first to third, first to third, second to home, like gas, creating pressure or feeling it, right? And so, anyways, we would have like the verbiage, as we know in coaches, is so important because you could just reference it, right? And we would just say, "Hey, good timing," right? And we'd have a signal for it. Good timing, good timing,
Mm,
good timing. And so, like, if I'm at third base coach or first, right here, it's just sign language,
yeah.
and it reminds good timing, good timing. And it's the law of attraction of just coaching is like you got to be able to reference it and bring it up every time because if it's as important to us as coaches, it's got to be just as important to the player.
It's funny you say that because like before when you were talking about like the review the next day, like something I was going to jump in and say is like I think especially on these fronts, these things that like unless you highlight for your players consistently, like you have to make that feedback regular. And again, I did it at Yale every week. If you want to do it every day, that's fine too. But like there needs to be like a means of circling back and actually assessing like how did we do? And maybe there's a game that you play like, hey, no opportunities here, but like we're gonna say that like there were no first to third opportunities, nothing to review today. But you want to create the consistent platform, whether it's a classroom setting, whether it's, a report card to review all of the instances that like you did great,
Mhm.
to teach the instances that like you didn't do quite as well. And the hitting space in Minnesota actually had a good phrase. Bryce Berg was the hitting coordinator, and he always used to say that like if your feedback is actually in a really good place when the players start making fun of it because it gets so regular and it gets so ingrained in their head and they start anticipating it. If they
Mhm.
start making fun of it, that's actually a really, really good thing
Yeah,
because it's just such a part of
they know it.
their process that it's just kind of like the inevitable next step as a
Yeah,
coach that you got to have a little bit of a thick skin with, but like see the actual like the benefit to it getting to
yeah.
that.
It means you're teaching it and they're processing it and understanding it. Like
Yep.
defensively, I would say, and it's not like we were unbelievable team, but like we got players better. Is hey, our theory is CTC, catch it, throw it, catch it. And so when I would address the team and hey, this is the drill, this is what we're going to do, go take our ground balls. All right, hey, Tuck, what do we got to do today? CTC, baby, let's do it. Right.
Yep.
And it became a sort of a call and a break. Hey, CTC on three, 1, 2, 3, CT. So you just become aware. And I think as a coach, that's really important to because it allows them to know exactly what you want, right, and how to get there. So
I agree more.
that's good. What about because I've always thought about I've always noticed you like to reflect, right? And you're always like spinning the wheels from a different perspective, bird's eye view. Example, like hey, I was scrolling through your Twitter. I was like, somebody put out a post about, a swing or an offensive thing. It's like, what's a good miss? What's a bad miss? You always think about it from an angle from the left or right side. And I like that, right? And you're always thinking, so like, what is, and I don't know how to put this into a question, but like, why and how have you do that? Is it just because you're an intelligent human being? Is it because you had to coach smart players at Yale and you had to dissect it differently? Like, when did that come part of your DNA?
Honestly, I don't think I've ever lost like what it's like to be a player. And I think like when you really examine like what a coach is asking you to do, like there's a number of things that we as coaches have literally just been passing down and we're just regurgitating for the sake of regurgitating. And I think the best coaches that I ever played for were the ones that were actually paying attention to what I was doing, like to the nth degree. Like, and that's what I've always like strived to do with like players. Like, I want to know your game as much as any coach ever played for. And I use this phrase a lot, like, um, a lot of players say that like their best coaches are their dads, like whether they're at the pro level or the youth level, like you tend to gravitate towards the people that you know have seen the most of your swings because they know what you do when you are at your best. They're not chasing a style, they're not chasing what they've seen others do. Like
Yeah.
they've seen you and they're like, hey, get back to you. And I think like the more that you pay attention to that type of stuff, there's absolutely some common threads amongst, players when they're doing things right. But there's also like inevitably, and I remember mentioning this in Minnesota with again like our hitting coordinator, there's something that every player does that's unique to him or her. Every single one. And if you can work to get to a point, and sometimes it takes a longer to do this with certain players than others, but if you can generally get to the point where you can say like, here's what's super unique to you and like there's genuine buy-in there and it tempers your propensity to just blindly throw like philosophies or drills that truth be told could work for 99 out of 100 kids, but you're treating that kid as potentially that one kid
Mhm.
who it doesn't apply to. And I think I've always like kind of worked backwards from there just in case I was dealing with that one out of 100 kid who that sentiment didn't necessarily apply to. So you hate to like feel like you're like always saying not necessarily to things, but you just want to leave yourself the opening to say like, hey, this is what we're gonna try. And if it works, great. But there's a chance it doesn't. That's okay. As long as we learn from it and we recycle what we learned and we make for a better next attempt, that's coaching. And I think that's all that like players actually really, want to do when they're working with a coach.
Yeah, no, that's such a good point. Such a good point. Just be better than you were yesterday, as cliche as that sounds, is like, okay, how did that season go? Right? Our last season as a coach, as a player, it's like, okay, what went wrong? All right, how do we fix it? Right. And it's not necessarily like the coaches, that's a day-to-day thing. Like, hey, the practice, bunt defense didn't go the way it was. That's probably our fault for not explaining it, not whiteboarding it, not classroom, not a visual. We jumped into it too quick, right? So you got to slow it and lead it up specifically. And it's just a reflection of just not being complacent, you know?
Agreed.
What,
So much
what,
of coaching nowadays is like dogmatic. It feels borderline like religious and like, I think what you just said was like super eloquent. It's just like a self-awareness about, what did we do? What didn't we do? All right, we didn't do that particularly well. Let's get better tomorrow with it. And, I think like taking that vantage point of like not feeling like you need to be perfect, knowing that you're not going to be perfect, both as a player, as a coach, it allows you to just like, you know, lean into creativity when you need to be creative and lean into direction when you need to, have some direction that you want guys working towards, but
Mhm.
you're certainly not slave to either.
For sure. Let me pause you right here because we're going to take a quick break because we got a little off topic. So I want to circle you back in. At this point in the conversation, Tucker was asking me about what I do and how I help athletes. So if you're enjoying this episode, make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening. And if you're not following me on Instagram yet, that's the best place to stay connected. That's where I share my most updates, clips, and news about what I'm learning and how we could apply it. You can find me there at John Karcich on Instagram. Now here's the rest of the conversation. We really start to dig into the mental game at the MLB level, handling failure, reflection tactics, and just really overall development from a youth standpoint to a major leaguer. Yeah, that's like the main thing of it is like I want to help the kids understand what the hell it takes to get to where they want to go. And that's it. And so like I'm enjoying it a lot. I still get out on the field 2-3 days a week for a couple hours and do
Great.
defense hitting, like things like that. But like I want to do right. I still want to do it right. I want to do it honestly, which is I've always been an honest recruiter and have a conversation. If they want to work with me and get pushed and be held accountable, then let's do it. If not, there are so many other kids, and like I don't get envious of other advisors or mental performance. Like, no, man, I'm unique,
I was
and
gonna
it
say, I
is
was
what it
literally
is.
just about, you took the words out of my mouth. You're unique. I don't know how many of those advisors are going to be able to genuinely and honestly speak to what you've seen for the last however long. Like, and I think that's invaluable to these. Now, it may hit people the wrong way when you're honest, but That's all you can
It's
ask for.
direction.
Yep.
It's direct. Nobody likes to be in the dark, right? And I've learned that from Rusty specifically, and just how I was raised. But like,
Is Rusty still at Santa Clara, by the way?
yeah, still at
He
Santa
is.
Clara.
Great.
Yeah, and so like, yeah, you just got to be honest with them. Like, and it's you as a coach, you got to be honest the right way. It's you just got to label things right. Like, hey, Tuck, do you want to make it to the big leagues? All right, well, this is what you're gonna have to do. You want to get the D1 scholarship? This is what we're gonna have to do, and it's gonna take a lot of consistency, right?
Yep.
And so, just understanding the process and knowing that like progress has to happen daily. That's really it, and just be aware of it. And so, like, I mean, from that, I guess where we're talking right now, but like, what is the mental side of it? Is like, what's lacking from the rookies, from the younger guys, even the older guys, because we all know I need it, you need it, everybody needs it.
Without exception, every single one of these guys, even the first rounders, they get punched in the face. And without exception, how they deal with that is a very good indication of how quickly they'll get to the big leagues. It's certainly not like a fork in the road where if like you don't embrace it the right way out of the gate, like you have there's little to no chance of you getting to where you want to be. But it's so interesting to see the kids that like take failure, whether it's at the plate or in the field, and genuinely recycle what they're learning into a better work week before the games versus those who you just have a really tough time dealing with the failure in and of itself. Before they could even like get to a point where they use it, they have to like, really work through the grind that is like just acknowledging that it's happening more often than they've ever had to. And, it's funny. I have a group of like buddies who I get on text messages with, like who are fathers of my son's age. And like, there's a couple like really interesting like notes that they found on like social media that said like, I think like if your kids can be on a team that is actually like 500, it's actually a really healthy thing for kids because it gives them enough like taste of success that they like it, they could grow to like it, and they want to come back for more. But there's also enough failure that it kind of forces them to be like, all right, what did you learn here? Like, and either other end of the spectrum can be unhealthy. Like if you lose all your games, obviously there's a level of failure there that makes you not want to come to practice for the game that day. And conversely, like if you're just winning all your games, you're kind of putting off what's going to happen at some point down the road, which is you failing and you being asked to use what you learned when you fail. So it's just interesting. And like when you see pro guys get to that level, there's a wide variety of ages, there's a wide variety of like backgrounds and how you got there and why you got there. But to a man, every single one of them is failing at a rate that they're not used to. And it's just really interesting how they deal with it and what they end up like doing to use it or just have to come to terms with it. It's interesting.
On a stage that nobody's ever had to do, right? Like it's new for them. And looking back on it, it's so much easier said than done. But like, with young kids, right? Like your kids are young. My kids are really young, but it's like, okay. And I kind of laugh because you said the 500 thing, and I'm having a term with my kids that I say when they because early on you're like, oh, you won. It's like, okay, when is that going to stop? And now like I'll let them win, but I'll make them lose, right? And what I've taught them is sometimes you win and sometimes you lose, and that's whenever the game's over. The silly games that we play. Hey, sometimes you win and they'll finish it. Sometimes you lose, right? And I had my daughter a couple of weeks ago, like I just beat my son in whatever it was, and he was upset. She goes, Jeter, it's okay. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, right? And it's like, I hope that mindset just stays with them for a long time because it's understanding. Like you said, you recycle the thought, okay? And then it's just understanding of the process of the game. And when we get emotional, I got emotional in the minor leagues. I tried to go 5 for 5 and make the big leagues by doing things that were out of my control, right? And a lot of people would say that same thing, but like if you could just get lost in the process of having an understanding and maybe like you said, like a bird's eye view of a situation, like, ooh, I might go I might go 0 for 3 and get blown up 3 times, or I might go 3 for 3. Like, was my preparation right? Was my mindset right? Was I in control of myself? And then whatever happens, happens, because I can't control the result. So let's just worry about my process.
So I think what you just said, like, and this isn't something I've communicated before, but it's a light bulb that just went off. I do think that there's an element of players need to feel comfortable identifying goals that, truth be told, 99% of the outside world aren't grading them on. So, like, whether it's, did I check those boxes? Like, did I have a good process? Did I get that work in? They're playing a different game than what, like, the public's playing. They need to, like, understand that, like, yes, the public is going to grade you by how many hits you have in that box score.
Mm-hmm.
If you play that public game, you're going to fail way more often than you want. But if, like, that tweet the other day, like, good misses, like, let's say I'm just rolling over constantly and I go 0 for 3, but I stayed inside of everything and I flew out to right field 3 times. Like, if you can get to a point where you genuinely say, like, dude, I went 3 for 3 relative to what I've actually been struggling with and working on, and, like, feel genuinely pumped about that. That is the point where you're saying, like, I'm pumped about something that, truth be told, maybe 1 or 2 other people in my circle know that I should be pumped about. And 99% of the people around me are going to either be oblivious to it or maybe even disagree with it because they're playing a different game than I am.
Yeah.
But if you can start with controlling what you can control, you can graduate to, like, things that, like, maybe aren't quite as in your control, but, like, good versions of failure that you know are good for you. The last thing is, like, yes, the ultimate test, which is actual on-field production, but it's kind of like being self-aware enough to know that, like, I get that the game that I'm playing is not what others are grading me by. And that's a tough mental battle. It really is. But, like, when you can get there and you can grade yourself and pat yourself on the back when you do those things and genuinely pat yourself on the back for those are the players that you see ultimately take off in really, really healthy ways. And those who can't get stuck or feel stuck.
Yeah. And it's easy to do when it's going your way, you know, because it's Warren Buffett always talks about in his books, inner scorecard, outer scorecard. You ever heard that from him?
No, I gotta look it up.
Inner scorecard, just as you can imagine, right? Like, on the inside, how did I do? What does it mean to me? Outer scorecard, perspective, media, coaches, stat line, right? Like, it's all about the inner scorecard. Outer scorecard doesn't matter. And so, like, a player who goes up, hey, fresh into spring training, here we are, JC baseball starting right now, high school starting right now, and it's like, okay, we've been prepping on this. I have athletes. We've been prepping, process, quality at bats, on time. This is the 3 components. Ask yourself after each game, are you on time? Did you swing at your pitch? Was it a quality at bat? Don't tell me anything else that happened.
Great.
Right? And it's like, okay, boom, got it, coach, got it. All right, well, now they're 1 for 8. Coach, what? No, you just got punched in the face. Stick to your process, because that's when everybody says it, when shit's hitting the fan, rely on your fundamentals and your process and your system. And that's the how to get through the thick of it and then exceed on the outside, right? And just go for it. And I was talking to Tom Kunis. He's a Dodger scout out here, a successful Dodger scout. And I said, what do you look for in a high school kid? You know, aside from obviously the obvious talent, the measurables. And he's like, we want to see family background. We want to see if the kid is going to learn how to be punched in the face and how he's going to handle it. That's the biggest question that we have to ask when we're going after and going to give millions of dollars to a high school kid. How is he going to respond?
Because the best players don't fail that much. That's the hardest part about this. Like, you're also going there hoping that they leave the yard or do some really, really cool things. And that's why it's an art. It's not a science, you know, and you do your best as a scout or a recruiter to, like, pick up on those things. And I don't know about you. I never felt like it was a foolproof process, no matter how structured we had it. Like, there was going to be kids that made that flight to New Haven, Connecticut that we were pleasantly surprised were way better than we thought. And there were going to be kids that were the crown jewels of our recruiting class that were like, all right, probably want to do that one again, but we're here for 4 years. Let's do what we can.
Okay. So you look at that, right? And you're talking about your kids' team going 500, or that quote that you heard. We could look at it as the best 12, 13, 14-year-old who is the 5'11" big kahuna guy who just is untouchable. That guy gets passed up pretty quick when he's 16, 17, 18 years old. All right. And the same thing, the guy that wins a lot, the stud, the first rounder, he hasn't had to overcome adversity. And so, like, those are the guys that I've seen and just being around, the game you've seen is like the first rounders who are working that process. And they're that much more mature about it rather than the guy who just thinks he's going to hit his, have his 80-mile-an-hour bat speed, just hit his way into the big leagues. And it's just the mental side. That's what it comes down to.
It's really important. And it comes like any other tool. It comes to some easier than others. And I think like you tell me, like, I know that on the pro side, like every organization is like way more well equipped to deal with those things, whether it's mental performance, whether it's mental health, than they were 10, 20 years ago. I'm assuming that that's the same case in college now where there are those resources. And
everybody's got it. But how open is the individual to using that resource? And because if it's a resource that's open and it's open for the whole athletic department, or it's in your pro organization, it's like, oh, this team of 2 people is supposed to help 300 athletes. It's like, you don't see value in that. But until you get out of your shell and you go in there and you break that down and you kind of be like open mindset to learn and grow, then you'll never know. Right. And then when shit hits the fan, you get punched in the face, you're going to want to go there, but you're going for the result, not the process. Right.
I agree.
So yeah, it's hard. It's hard and it's not easy, man. It's not easy, but
I think like what I've my conversations with those spaces over the years that I've mentioned that, like, hey, the more that we can as coaches utilize them in coaching ways, because we ride the roller coaster of the season. We deal with a lot of the same stuff, whether we admit it or not, that these players do with results or lack thereof, stuff happening at home being brought to the field, vice versa. That, like, the more we make this like a player thing, like, yeah, it's going to be, seen as such. But like, if we can look a player in there and be like, hey, I go, like, I don't need to tell you why or what we talk about. And I don't expect you to tell me that either. So like, I think the more that we as coaches lean into it and we're honest with ourselves about, when we could use it, it may break down that barrier where you're seen as like having a chink in your armor when, if and when you do go. So
yeah, no doubt. And I'll share with an example, because now that I've always recruited high school kids, right? And I've, you know how it is. You're talking to them from a sophomore, junior year, all the way up until they graduate with you at their school. So it's like 7 years, 6, 7 years of a relationship. But I've never got to working with the high school kid, right? Now I'm working with the sophomore, junior, like, selfishly, I'll pick who I get to work with. But like, the better player, the sophomore, of a couple of them, left-handed stick, shortstops, right? And it's like, okay, this is what a recruit wants, and we'll work out, and it's consistent. And I'll ask the questions, but at the end of practice, like, hey, tell me what you got out of it today, right? And one of these sessions in particular, like, he got dominated defensively, like bad, and I exposed him, and it was like, he's like, hitting was good because of what X, Y, Z. He's like, defensively didn't get better. And I was like, no, you did. He said, are you serious? I said, no, you did. This is the best thing that's happened to us. We now have better direction on what it is that we need to work on.
Yes.
And he kind of lit up a little bit like, oh, okay. And yeah, obviously it wasn't a good session, but like perspective. And like, if I think about a guy, missing the ball, a ground ball, right? And it just comes up off him. Dude, you're in the right spot, man. Just the process was there. Yep. You just didn't catch it. Just do that again and you'll grab it, right? Yep. Like, that's what you're saying, just like as a coach, like, hey, good miss. Dude, you're right on it, right? Like you got to be realistic, but you also got to fluff it up a little bit and just understanding that.
There's a real art to a coach dealing with that failure. And I remember talking about this recently with Mets coaches. It's like, we as coaches sometimes like feel like that failure is an indictment on us, but truth be told, like, there's some environments that are the best thing for the player, like you just said. But within that, you got to do a good job kind of gauging, like, all right, is the player like getting more and more locked in, more and more focused in a really productive and healthy way? Or is he starting to spiral a little bit? And there's ways to deal with both. Like, some things that like that come to mind are like, listen, if the kid's missing over and over and over again, but the miss is a consistent one, there's an opportunity there as a coach to just like shift sights or shift the focus and make that consistent miss a consistent make.
Mm-hmm.
If it's inconsistent, or you just see the mental toll it's taking, like, don't be afraid to like make the rep easier, blend in some easier reps right in the middle of the rounds, just so the kid remembers like why we're doing it,
Mm-hmm.
and how much easier the more routine reps are going to feel thanks to those reps. And,
Mm-hmm.
Again, it takes some feel as a coach to like understand, whether the reps are productive or unproductive. That's a phrase that we learned here last couple of weeks with the Mets. Like, nothing's good or bad. It's either productive or unproductive. I love that phrase.
Yeah.
And when things are starting to get unproductive, like, all right, how do we as a coach like tap in to like help the kid remember that, like, yes, it's hard. Yes, you're not dominating it, but do you understand all the good that's happening within this that it's easy to lose sight of?
Yeah. Perspective.
Yep.
Bird's eye view. It's so much easier from I've learned maybe more just being out of it, right? And looking back now and understanding it. So like if I ever went back to being a coach, like I feel like I would have a better perspective and process of communication to the coaches. And in college it's tough because you have the time management. So it's like, hey, we got you for 10 minutes, let's go, blah blah blah. And like you want to do the 20 rep max that you can, then it's like, let your gut and eyes tell you, like, the drill's not going. The drill's being unproductive right now after 7 swings. Maybe I need to stop and explain it. And you're only going to get 3 more swings today, but those swings will be better than the 13 you're supposed to take.
It's the most useful part or way to use that time. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, good, man. I could obviously talk shop with you for an hour, but I appreciate it, man. It's great to see you and cool to see everything. I wanted to get into some catching and just everything, but this is beautiful. This is good.
That's great. I'd love to. I mean, like I said, anytime you need me, I'm more than happy to talk shop with you and help you out with those guys. I'm pumped that you're doing it, and those kids are super lucky, man.
For sure, man. I appreciate it. It's cool to see kind of your track, just kind of cruising up and from Yale to the big, get into the big leagues. And just like a player, you got to stay in the big leagues. You know what I mean? Like, dude, you're in the same boat, man. So it's like, you got to keep chipping away and getting better. And that's cool. So you're the right man, got the right mindset for that.
I appreciate it, Karcich.